donde se centralizaba, que había la escuela, estaba el almacén, vos estudiaste acá.
It was like a community. The grocery store was here. Lots of kids went to school here. The face of the countryside has changed. Now it is a desert. There are no more farmhouses here in the countryside, no more people. The soya dominates all other crops.
Santiago Castillo used to breed cattle here in San Pedro, and until the mid-90s you'd also see peaches, oranges and sweet potatoes. Now, genetically modified soya is the only crop planted for miles around. Santiago has leased out his land to a big company to grow GM soya, and now other farmers want a piece of the action.
Hace poco un amigo me dio un ejemplo que estaba trabajando.
Not so long ago, a friend was working his land in San Salvador, a very small town in Entre Rios, but the hotel was full of people, and he said it reminded him of Hollywood films about the search for gold. The soya has produced the same rush. They plant soy anywhere.
These fields of GM soya need a lot of fertilizer, but not as many workers. Santiago has moved to the city, other farmers sold up. In San Pedro, the farm workforce has shrunk from 10,000 people to around 3,000. Americo, Santiago's old neighbor, did stay on after selling his own farm. Now he looks after Santiago's brother's farm.
I sold my animals when they weren't worth anything. Now, the situation has improved, but it's too late. Some farmers rented out their land, and some were in so much debt they decided to sell. And now, most of the land is planted with soya.
He sometimes complains and says, "I feel so lonely here."
Americo looks like he'll stay lonely while farmers leave the countryside. So far, it's proved irresistible for farmers like Santiago to make more money from leasing their land to big business for GM soya. But Santiago is worried for the future.
International soya prices and devaluation have made us all wealthy, but it could be wealth today and hunger tomorrow. I think there is a huge euphoria, and I would warn people to be careful.
At Buenos Aires University, the agronomist Walter Penge has been watching the spread of GM soya carefully.
There's plenty of demand, because there is a world which keeps buying GM products. If these GM products weren't in demand in the developed world, we would have never planted them in our economies. What happened in Argentina was that the soya pushed out the crops because the international prices were so good. So the Argentine farmers tried to take advantage of the situation.
Do the farmers risk losing out by relying so heavily on this one crop?
If we talk about soya dependency, more than 50% of Argentinian agricultural exports depend on soya today. What we mustn't forget is what is happening in other countries. Brazil is planning to produce 10 times more soya than what it is producing today. This could produce an oversupply which would lower the prices and make our economies more dependent than they already are.
Santiago showed me the effects of the soya planting on his fields.
The land here shows huge ditches of 1 meter deep every 500 meters or so, which didn't exist before. I'm worried about the cattle displacement. Cattle make the land fertile, and they allow us not to use chemical fertilizers. We all know fertilizers contain salt. We are actually salinizing the land. We are mistreating the country.
And for farmers like Santiago who are taking advantage of the world's demand for GM soya, there's no protection if the prices start to drop. Walter Penge shares these concerns.
The difference with the US farmer, with the European farmer, is that these are highly subsidized. In the case of the Argentinians, all the risk starts and ends with them, and when they go bankrupt forever.